Okay, today's notes are going to be about the Constitutional Convention and how it really is a bundle of compromises. The Articles of Confederation was perhaps the first major policy mistake of the American people, and change is called for because of pretty much the failure of what the Articles of Confederation was. All right, so let's be mindful of the things of why we need change. Okay, the country's poor with no means for the government to raise any money. Remember, they have absolutely no power to levy taxes. Okay, your states are doing all kinds of different things. The kind of money that's floating around is very much confusing because your states can print their own money. So you could have up to 14 different types of money running around with your 13 states and national money on top of that. Okay. Congress cannot act if we were attacked or invaded. Sure, they have the power to declare war, but because they cannot tax, they have absolutely no means by which to pay for it. The economy, as a result of these things, is absolutely crumbling. Remember, there's quite a bit of debt from the American Revolution that they need to pay, especially to France. Okay, the very unity of the country is falling apart as well. Remember, many of them think of themselves still as individuals from their states and not necessarily as American citizens. So, as a result of these needed changes, you will have a group of people that meet in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in May of 1787, and their task is to create a new and functional government. Right? So, representatives from 12 separate states, okay, Rhode Island being absent, are going to come together to talk about fixing the Articles of Confederation. Okay, you have people coming from all kinds of different walks of life in order to reach this decision and create this new government. Now, some of the people that you may remember from previous units are also there, and some are absent. So George Washington is present, Benjamin Franklin, and James Madison. Those that are absent tend to be Jefferson and Adams, who are overseas. Okay, they're dealing with their diplomatic duties overseas, and John Hancock is absent as well. And you have protests specifically from Patrick Henry, who says that with this constitutional convention, he smells a rat. He thinks that absolutely no good is going to come from this meeting. All right, the meeting is held again in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in Independence Hall. Okay, same location where your Second Continental Congress was meeting. Okay, so now that you have representatives from 12 states there, the question is, what in the world do we do? You have the articles. Remember, it just has a legislative branch. It is unicameral, meaning there's only one house. There's Congress. No matter how many people lived in each one of those states and how many representatives they may bring to Congress, they only have one vote. So you have a total of 13 votes, generally speaking, when it came to making any law, changing any law under the Articles of Confederation. And 9 out of your 13 states, is what it should say, must agree. So if they don't do something about it, the country's going to fail. So you got to reach in your toolkit and figure out what to do. You get rid of the articles altogether. All right, you have a few plans, which again are going to lead to some compromises. So the first gentleman with a plan is the Virginia plan from James Madison. And what James Madison proposes is a federal system of government. And that just means that your states are going to keep certain powers, but final authority is going to be given to the central government. So it's the shared power of your states and the national government together. Okay, another part of his plan is that your voters or citizens would choose or elect the representatives to serve in a lower house. So he's proposing a bicameral legislature. Representatives in the lower house are then going to choose your members of the upper house under Madison's plan. Okay, the numbers of representatives for each state are going to be based on the state's population of voters. Okay, keep this in mind that this is a Virginia plan, and Virginia is a state that has a large population. So, of course, Madison being from that area is going to definitely want to have population come into play when it comes to representation in Congress. All right, so this is pretty much Madison's plan. right? You're going to have three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. Remember, there was no executive or judicial branch in the national government. You do have those in state governments, though. So you see here, the executive on the state level is the governor, who is going to enforce the laws. The judicial branch, you have your courts, they interpret the laws. Legislative, you have Congress, and they'll make the laws. With his plan for the national government, trying to make it kind of along the lines of what the states are already doing, you'll have a president as your executive, and you will have a two-house or bicameral legislature with an upper and a lower house. Okay, that lower house, again, is going to be based on population. So is the upper house. In that lower house, your people will elect those individuals or representatives, and the lower house will then elect your upper house members. Okay, opposition begins with some pretty simple arguments, honestly. Some thinking that ordinary people can't be trusted to make important decisions. Okay, that your state governments are the ones that should choose the representatives, not the citizens. Again, back to that idea. What do ordinary people know, right? Your smaller states feel like they don't have a strong voice because your bigger states are going to have more representatives. They think that too much power is going to be given to the central government. There's not going to be enough left for the states if you do this. Lots and lots of questions. So you have a New Jersey plan proposed by William Patterson. And what he's saying is that with that legislative branch, you're going to keep it unicameral. So you just have that one house, which is what they already have under the articles, and that each state, regardless of their population, is going to send the same number of members to Congress. So the New Jersey plan is going to knock out that other house. You just keep one house, and you're going to have the same number of representatives from there for each state. Again, opposition is going to continue, and there are more points that are very valid. Your citizens in larger states are not going to be represented properly, they feel. That the government needs to come from the people, that the people need to be heard. That Pennsylvania's population, hey, it's 11 times greater than Delaware. We should have more representatives. Why would Delaware have the same say-so as Pennsylvania? It makes no sense to them. All right, so you take these two plans, and what you need to do is create some type of compromise, so that each side gets a little of something that they want. So your convention delegates were pretty much at a standstill, and before they can move on, they have to have a compromise, again, reaching an agreement where each side has to give something up. So Roger Sherman comes up with the Great Compromise on July the 16th. Congress is going to have two houses, so now it's going to be bicameral. And this is going to allow you to appease both sides. The House of Representatives, or lower house, will be represented by states based on population. And then you'll have an upper house, which we'll call the Senate. And they will have an equal representation regardless of the population of each state. So your Great Compromise has the national government with three branches. Then you have an executive, that's the president, a lower house that's based on population, the upper house, which is the Senate, which is going to be based on an equal number of representatives from each state. Is everybody happy? Okay, your citizens in larger states will not be represented equally. You know, again, people in Pennsylvania are saying, hey, we have more people. They're thinking ordinary people can't be trusted to make decisions. You still have a lot of these questions and these issues. Okay, now we've settled the problem with your smaller states and your larger states dealing with the population. Now you still have a couple issues here. All right, continuing with the Great Compromise, Roger Sherman proposes that the House of Representative members be elected directly by the people, and that the Senate members will be chosen by the state legislatures. Okay, so those changes are reflected there. So that takes out the, hey, ordinary people can't make all these important decisions. You'll at least allow them to pick the representatives in the lower house. But the upper house, yeah, we'll let some other legislatures take care of that. Okay, that also takes away some of your power being all in the central government's hands, and that your states then have the power to choose some representatives as well. Okay, so more solutions are going to bring even more questions. If you're going to determine your representation based on population, you're going to need a census, right? You've got to figure out exactly how many people live in an area. You have to figure out, do slaves count? It's a good question. So, why would slavery even be an issue? Let's think about this. Your southern states have quite a few slaves, and as a result, they would love for them to count in your population so that they can get more representatives in Congress. So what ends up being determined is what becomes known as the 3/5 compromise, that every 5 slaves will count as 3 people in the population of the state for the purpose of representation. Okay, again, this is called the 3/5 compromise. So then you're basically saying that a slave is actually 3/5 of a real person. Please write at the bottom of your notes how you feel about that. How do you feel about a slave, someone who is a human being, counting as 3/5 of a real person just for the purposes of population to determine representation in Congress? Please add that at the end of your notes, and we will check over and discuss that in class. Okay, there's still a few more questions after that. Okay, will the national government have the power to regulate trade? Okay, what about trade with other nations? What about the slave trade? Okay, so your compromises with trade. Your northern states want Congress to have the power to regulate trade. Remember, shipping is a huge industry in those states. They want to have universal laws. They want to make sure that they can benefit. They want to make sure that other countries feel comfortable trading with them. Your southern states want the states to retain the power. They're involved very heavily in exports in fear of losing the slave trade, especially because that is one of the foundations of their economy and how it functions. So you have yet another compromise. Your northern states are going to get their way with the central government being able to control the power or regulate trade, and then your southern states agree to this, but only if the issue of slavery can be ignored for some years. And guess how many years they decide to we're going to ignore the issue of slavery and just put that to the side. 20 years. We're just going to put that on the back burner. All right, so just when you think you're done, still some more issues to deal with. So you need a president. Do you elect one? Do you appoint a person for that position? So how do you elect the president? Are you going to let Congress decide? Or are you going to let the people decide? What they come up with is another type of compromise. So your framers of the Constitution are going to let each state select electors, okay? And that number is going to be based on population. The Electoral College, this group of electors, are then going to elect the president and the vice president. All right, key men are going to play roles in the convention. George Washington is the president of the Constitutional Convention. He shows great leadership skills once again, and he avoids taking sides. He's really pretty neutral when it comes to things. Governor Morris is going to have a gift of writing, so he writes most of the words of the present Constitution. Benjamin Franklin's still hanging around doing his thing, and he's cracking jokes, trying to ease the tension, because this is a pretty tense thing going on. And then finally, James Madison, he's known as the father of the Constitution. He did a lot of research about government systems leading up to this meeting to make sure that they were making the right types of decisions for the nation. And so your ratification is in September 17th of 1787, and Franklin is more than excited that this goes through, that things went well. He calls it a rising sun. Right? The Constitution is going to include articles that we will go through about how the government is going to be set up and structured, and we'll continue with notes and information and activities on that over the next few weeks. Right, you do have a debate on convincing the American people that, hey, this change is good. This is what we need in this new nation. And so you're going to have an issue with people who are Federalists or who are for this Constitution, and anti-Federalists, those people who are against this Constitution. Okay? Make sure that you filled in every single blank, that you have taken care of that slavery question at the bottom of your notes as well, and that you take your quiz on Edmodo. Have a great day.